Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Khoj Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation is from Gaudi Mahalla Panjama. Dar Dar Marte jab janeya dur, Dar चूका देखया भरपूर, सतगुर अपने को बलिहारै, छोड़ न जाई सर पर तारै रहाओ। दुख रोग सोग बिसरै जब नाम, दुख रोग सोग बिसरै जब नाम, सदा आनंद जां हर गुण काम। बुरा भला कोई न कहीजै, छोड़े मान हर चरण कहीजै। कहो नानक गुर मंत्र चितारै, सुख पावै साचै दरबारै। A short passage, but significant in its message as always. डर डर मरते जब जानिए दूर, डर चूका देखया भरपूर. I was scared to death when I imagined the self to be afar. But when I realized the self to be present everywhere, my fear evaporated. And when the Guru speaks of dar, fear, he's pointing to fear, existential fear, the fear of death primarily. And yet, dar is also used in another context, which is in relation to the Creator, a sense of reverence and awe and restraint, which is also a form of dar. In this line, dar dar marte jab janiye dur clearly is speaking about our existential fear when we are not connected to ourself. And that dar chuka, we overcome that fear, dekhya bharapur, when we realize that the self is present everywhere. So how does that happen? That realization comes through the Satgur. Satgur apne ko baliharai, chhod na jai sar par tarai. Baliharai, submission, to give up one's own strength to the Satgur, to that principle of knowledge. Satgur apne ko baliharai, and what does the Satgur do? Chhod na jai. The Satgur will never desert you. Sar par tarai. Sar par, assuredly, without an iota of doubt. Tarai, ferrying across the ocean of existence. So then, this is the central message, the realization that the self is present everywhere comes through the Satgur. And then the Guru speaks about the condition that follows and how we need to overcome it. Again, this is an expansion of the first couple of verses. The Sabad reads, Dukh Rog Sog. Dukh Rog Sog, sorrows, afflictions, unhappiness, is our natural default state. Why? Bisre jab naam, when the self is alienated from us, as it is in our default state, then Dukh Rog Sog is the result. So when we are alienated from the self, all manner of disease and sorrow afflicts us. Then life becomes sorrow. Everything involves sorrow. But when we cultivate the self, we are able to experience life blissfully. That is the spiritual transformation that must occur. Bura pala koi na kahijai, chod maan har charan kahijai. And here is the message on how to do it. Chod maan. Give up. Drop the ego. Don't look at the world through the lens of the ego. Charan kahijai. Charan, feet, symbolizing spiritual knowledge, the knowledge that comes from the Satgur. Chod maan har charan kahijai, the knowledge of the self. Bura pala koi na kahijai. And rise above, transcend the world of opposites, of bura pala, good and evil. That is how we normally view the world. And we just spoke in the earlier passage, the one preceding this, that doha siryan ka ek khasam, meaning that, and we talked about Sahaj, where we said that that was a complete transformation of one's perspective, where one begins to see the sacred and the profane, the finite and the infinite as dimensions or two sides of the same coin. That is being reiterated here. Bura pala koi na kahijai. Not only don't speak ill of anyone, but to also transcend this notion that these are absolutes. They are not. They are just two sides of the same coin. Kaho Nanak gur mantar chitare, sukh pave, sache darbar. So, says Nanak, pay heed to the counsel of Guru wisdom, then you will reach the threshold of the Har Self and find lasting happiness. Darbare. Darbar is a Persian word that signifies a site that is usually built in memory of a deceased spiritual master. Guruji appears to have used this word to indicate to us that threshold to universal consciousness, where we have to arrive to be accepted. So we can get to the threshold of the Har, but entry into that state of consciousness is a matter of grace. So pay attention to the counsel of Guru wisdom. Reach that threshold and then find acceptance. So the significance here in this Shabad is in the Rahav. Satgur apne ko balihare, chhod na jaye sar par tare. The Satgur, of course, is central to the teachings, and Sikh tradition tells us that we know, for instance, that during the Guru period, Sikhi, being a panth, a way, meant that it was initiatory in nature. In other words, its teachings were transmitted orally from master to disciple. That is what a panth really means, a way. It's the way of Nanak, the Guru. And we have evidence of this in Ramkali Ki Var, which describes the formal initiation of Guru Angad. So in that sense, Sikhi is different from the other orthodox systems in that the initiation of the disciple used to happen through the person of the master. So you needed to be properly initiated and not to have acquired knowledge through books, because no amount of intellectual learning can liberate. In fact, there is an expression that says Shastra Jal. You could get snared by too much reading. So those who spend endless time on logic and grammar and so on can fall into the snare of textbooks and become mentally confused. So the Guru played a fundamental role in Sikhi and still does. So we know, for instance, that Sikhi evolved over 250 years, and through the efforts of Guru Arjan and Guru Gobind Singh, the teachings were textualized in Gurbani, and Guru Gobind Singh then declared for all times to come that now Sikhs were to approach the Granth, because the Granth is unlike other scriptures that emphasize ritualism. The Granth is about self-empowerment, about self-realization. So Sikhs today must come together in Sangat and approach Gurbani. That is the way we initiate ourselves into this path. On that note, until the next time, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.